Greetings and salutations, guys. Welcome back to the Maker's Mindset. I'm Angel Cabrera, your host, and today we have an amazing guest. I don't want to reveal their name, but I find it so cool for someone to be on, like, you just Google your name and, everything, like your age, where you went to school. I think that's really cool. So I'm just going to read that, and if the people listening can guess who he or she is before we reveal our mystery guest, then that would be cool. So, person X is a Ugandan cinematographer, screenwriter, film director, producer, and graphics designer. I'm not going to say his works, but he's an amazing guy, award-winning filmmaker. And today we have, drumroll, Loukman Ali.
Thanks for having me. Okay, cool.
Yeah, is everything on here true?
Well, some of it is like not true, but it's all right.
Like,
I've read that whole thing before, and it has a couple of things that are well, kind of true, but not really true.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get to read a lot of things that are not true about myself.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of used to it now.
You're used to it.
Yeah.
Do you ever bother to correct?
No, because so what it did to me is that now when I read about other people, I doubt what I see. I'm like, yeah, well, it's not true about me, so it's probably not true about them. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So now, what's the truth? Why? Who are you?
Okay, well, the Ugandan cinematographer dash, all that is a bit true, but I don't think you read the whole thing. There's a couple of things.
There's a lot, but then
Yeah.
if I read it has your work,
Yeah.
the guys would know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some of it, but
So-
I know for sure I read that,
Mm-hmm.
and I know some of it is not true.
Okay, the blind date, 16 rounds. So people have an idea of who they think you are, right?
Yeah.
And there's stuff you told me,
Yeah.
50 interviews in 30 minutes and the likes.
Yeah.
But what's that one thing no one knows or no one has heard about Loukman Ali?
The one thing. I wish I'm not that interesting. So there's not really much that's not. I'm a sweet tooth. I don't know if that's interesting at
That
all. Yeah, I don't know. There's a couple of other things, some of which I'm probably not going to say in public. But yeah, there's a lot. Like anyone else, there's a lot. There's some surface level stuff, and then yeah.
I noticed you're very observant, yeah? And
Try to be.
yeah, you're so, like, when you came looking at the paintings and the technical stuff, and one of the things I've always wanted to ask is, how do you pick what story to tell? What's like the criteria, if any?
How do I pick a story to tell? Yeah. So sometimes, most of the times, like all the stories I have, I've kind of had them on a list.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything I've told, I've had them on a list. But then how I went down that list depended on the difficulty level of the story, technically and like financially. How much do I need to pull this off? So usually I see my situation and then I'm like, okay, now I'll do this one because I'm capable of pulling it off. Yeah, so I started with the easiest, moved on like that. So I'm saving some of the complex ones for later when I have more skill and more money and hopefully more audience, yeah.
And what's your goal? Like, every time, does every film have its own goal, or do you have a general?
I think it's more of a general goal.
Yeah.
The general goal is to make a good film. So each time you make one, you realize. So, okay, when you're making a film, you have this visual. You have all the visuals in your head. In your head, you think you know how you want it to be. You know how the story is supposed to move, but knowing it and presenting it are two different things.
Yeah.
So you have the thing in your head, like most people, you have a story. You know this story, something happened to you, but there's this empathy. Like, I'll give you an example. We're sitting here, and then two people start fighting, right? But these two people are my parents, but you don't know that. So we are both watching the same people fighting, but we feel differently about them. And the only reason I feel the way I feel is because I know the story behind. I know these people personally. So if we're both to tell the story, I would connect more to it. If you're telling that story, when I'm listening to that story, I already know who my dad is, who my mom is, who probably started this. But then if I'm telling you that story, telling the same story back to you, for you it's just two random people fighting, understand? So we all have stories, but when as a filmmaker, my job is to make you feel the way I feel as I'm watching them, like knowing who they are and understanding why they're doing what they're doing. And that's easier said than done. So because we've all seen the story, we've all taken it up and we all think we can tell it. Sometimes all think we can direct films, so that's exactly how I felt in the beginning. I thought it's easy peasy, I could just do this, I could tell these stories. And then you make the first one and you realize that, okay, I suck at this. And you don't even need people to tell you. You watch it back yourself and you're like, this is so not what I thought. It's so hard to comprehend what's happening. So then other people watch it and they don't get it at all. So then the next one you try to improve, and then the next one. So for me, that's been the goal, just trying to like improve myself and try to do a good story and something that's compelling. Yeah, that's been the journey, and when I get there, I think everyone will know. I'll probably go out and celebrate that I've finally done it.
So you've not yet gotten to where you want to be?
Not yet.
That's cool. That's a very humble thing to say.
Not humble, it's the truth.
It's
the truth. I'm not trying to be humble at all. When I get it, I'll know. And I started off as a sketch artist, then a graphics designer, then a 3D. With sketching, I got to a point where I was like, I think I'm there now. So I used to be like, oh, I don't think I'm there. And people would think I'm just being humble. But that was the truth. And then when I got, there's a drawing I did, it's a drawing of my mom. Once I finished that, I was like, well, there's really nowhere else to go for me. I think I've achieved what I've always wanted to achieve. And yeah, the moment she endorsed it and she's like, okay, that's like a photograph. On that day, I lost motivation to draw. Like now, I don't think anyone can make me draw. I'm not interested at all. So that was the thing that was pushing me. So for this, it's the goal to like realize the dream and it comes out exactly as I envisioned it. But I think once that's done, who knows, I might lose motivation and just move on to the next thing.
And go to golf or whatever.
Music.
Music?
I've always been interested in music, yeah.
That's cool. I'd love to see that.
Well, with my soundtracks, I'm quite involved in the making of them, yeah.
I see a lot of sentiment and attachment to your work. Yeah. And there's often, well, I've had this narrative, the art and the artist, detachment. How do you, manage to balance?
Like not be what I present in the art? Well, my art is quite violent, and I don't even think I've ever been in a fight. So I feel like it's kind of like a way to do the things like I wouldn't do in real life. It's like an escape to kind of like get that violent side of my head and just put it into kind of like how you play video games and you shoot people. Yeah, and you would rather do that than shoot actual people. So yeah, my art sometimes doesn't necessarily represent how I think. And sometimes I try to put in bits of what I think, but I try to avoid doing that because I feel like I hate trying to tell people what I think in hopes that they will think the same. So I just try to do whatever feels like entertaining at the time, because I believe, for me, the main purpose I've always watched movies was to get entertained. And usually when I'm watching the film and in the end I've learned something, that's a plus. I'm like, oh, I was entertained and now I know something I didn't know before. But I never really go out there to like learn the thing. I wouldn't go into the cinema to learn about pie. This film has a math problem. Maybe I go and learn pi. If I learn something interesting about pi, I was there to watch World War II, but then
not pi.
somehow I got to
Pi
learn
got
pi.
in the mix.
So I think for me, my main thing will be the entertainment part of it.
Yeah.
And then this whole social and educational stuff comes as a by the way, and that's even if I'm able to actually put it in there in a way that you can't necessarily see that that's what I'm doing. Yeah.
But then, I would like to disagree and agree to a certain extent, because literature serves a purpose. Okay, well, a film is literature in motion, but the script and all of that.
So it's music.
So exactly. And there's this misconception that now we are doing inclusion. So you put inclusion straight there, what you're saying, that whole educational narrative.
Yeah.
But that's the art of storytelling, to talk about, I don't know, Punishment Island, but teach a story of identity, in a very subtle way. And for me, that's what I appreciate. I'm not going to lie. I've only watched one film of yours, the Katera of Punishment Island. But from why I don't really feed into Ugandan film is we are telling and not showing. You know how you said you don't want to tell people what to think, you just want to show them and entertain them. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of it is, when you compare it to the outside market, it's not appealing, right? And what do you have to say about that? Do we have, our film industry, not just you alone, but the entire industry?
So what I think about that is, I think if what you're saying is true, it will work. But if you're just kind of making it up because that's what is expected, I think people can usually see through it.
Yeah.
So, for example, most of my films, when I set out to write them, I tend to just, I don't know who's going to be the villain or who's going to be the most powerful person in the film. And for all the films that I've written, I've always ended up having the female as the lead, even when I didn't intend to. And that's probably because of my mom in my life and how much. And this is something that I don't go out there to a strong female lead, but it just happens organically. It just happens organically. And I think when it does, it's believable, and people don't like some of my favorite films, like The Terminator, Aliens. You have Ripley, you have Sarah Connor, you have all these. But when I'm looking at them, I don't look at them as look at these strong female people. I look at them look at that hero over there. When I'm watching this film, I'm thinking, damn, Sarah Connor is I wish I was her. And the reason it works is because it's not trying to push anything. It's just being true to itself. She's a mother and she's also strong. So she's not just a woman trying to be a man. She's strong like that, So whenever I see things like that, those things just happen. When I was writing 16 Rounds, which is one of my favorite films, it's on YouTube. I don't know, it just kind of just happened that the lady became kind of the most powerful one in the film. But the film wasn't meant to be hers, it was meant to be someone else's. But during the course of the writing, it just kind of it just happened. I didn't force it down, and So I believe that anytime you want to tell a message has to be true to you. It has to be true to you, and that's how you'd be able to sell it in a subtle way. But anytime you so what's trending now? It's people that identify as something else. So I'll make a movie about a guy that identifies as a shoe, and people will see through it. Even people that feel like that and it's true to them, people that actually feel like they're a woman inside or a man inside, or people that feel any sort of way, they'll see through it. They're this guy doesn't actually know what it feels like. They're just trying to jump onto the bandwagon. And I feel that's what I don't like. Every time I'm watching a film, I feel it's talking down to me. It's they think I don't know this subject, and they're trying to lecture me, as opposed to trying to make me empathize with this subject, like try to feel a way that this person would feel, you know. Yeah, so I think that's a difference in some of the films you're talking about. People try to like, I don't know, shove it
Down your
the
throat.
throat or talk down to you.
Yeah.
It's like, look at you don't understand that women are people, and you're like, come on, really? Is there anyone on earth that doesn't understand that? No. It's just that some people might not empathize with a certain group of people, but they don't think they're not human. There's just a thing that's missing, and if you could just put that in, tap into that, you know, you can make a racist person watch a film, and they root for a black person, and they don't even understand why they're doing that, and then they're like, no, I'm okay with Bruce Willis. Sorry, I'm okay, let's say, with Cuba Gooding Jr. I just don't like all these other black people.
Yeah.
But the other person they're talking about is also black, but you're able to make them feel for that person and see them as a human being and not just as a black person. So I feel like that's the right way of doing it.
Yeah, that's really cool. What do you have to say about, one, do Ugandans watch your films? Like, what's your audience like? Before I assume.
Yeah, so when I was checking the stats on YouTube, surprisingly, most of my audience was actually in the US, and then the second was Europe, mostly the United Kingdom, and then the third was India, surprisingly. And then the next one was Kenya, then Nigeria.
Whoa,
and then
that's
some
many.
other place.
Before we reach
and then
home.
we reach Uganda. So Uganda was like 16%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I plead guilty.
Yeah, I mean, it's
guilty.
and the reason I made these films in the first place was to kind of try to solve that problem.
Yeah.
So I made the films, made them free online on YouTube. I made billboards for these films, put them out there on the streets, and all this stuff was like just trying to see if I can entice Ugandans to watch this. It's free, so they can't really say that, oh no, Ugandan films are expensive, that's why you don't watch them. So made it free, try to advertise it, try to push it. Yeah, but there's this thing in Uganda where if I didn't come up with that thing, then I don't want anyone else to know about it. So there were times where it felt like when I see something nice, like a nice Ugandan song, I have no problem sharing it with my friends. I don't share every single Ugandan song. Whenever I see a nice one, whenever I hear a nice one, I'm like, yeah, some people should hear this. And I think that's kind of what I expected most people to do, but most people just don't.
And do you have like a theory around that?
Well, it could be how we're raised, and it has to do with culture, I think. I think most of us, I don't know, it's like we think it has to be us that gets there first, or that gets to do this thing, and if someone else does it, then we're like, we won't talk about them, in hopes that people don't get to know that they did it. So that's how I can explain it. But it could be maybe people genuinely just don't care, and it's not like they're trying to be mean or anything. So that's also a possibility.
But
actually, it's more likely to be that than the other one.
Well, I would say from my observation and also a personal analysis, it's I'm very, anti-colonial, neo-colonialism and all of that, Pan-African. But there's this love for the foreign. Yeah, this love.
We are all kind of guilty of that in a way. So when someone else does that to me, it's kind of like my first film on Netflix, The Girl in the Yellow Jumper, which is probably my least favorite film. Someone sent me a link and showed me, your film is already on this piracy website. And I think they expected a reaction from me to be like, oh my God. But what I thought was, I've always watched movies from this website. I'm guilty of pirating these films myself. Like, maybe not actively pirating them, but I've watched films that have that website in the name that clearly shows they were picked up from that website, and I've watched them. So I can't really fight when someone is watching mine from that website. All I did was like, oof, okay.
But that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
So it kind of showed me that, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe I shouldn't be so happy watching this. But again, sometimes there's no other way of getting these films. So when I see other people picking Western films over my film, before they even watch it, I don't judge that so harshly, because there are times I've watched a trailer, and I'm like, it's Ugandan, it's probably going to suck. Then I watch another one instead. So because I've been guilty of that myself, I'm kind of like, I don't just jump in and judge people that do that. And this is why the films were free.
Yeah.
Took them to cinema, invited people, they didn't have to pay anything. And the people that watched the films would tell them that, if you like these films, share them with other people so that we get to grow the local industry. Yeah. And it kind of worked-ish, because people were actually watching those films and they were talking about them, and not as many as I would have liked, but yeah, it's a start. I mean, you can't just come up in a year or two and expect everyone to just change how they've been for so many years, Yeah.
So from what I get from your background, it was very visual storytelling, yeah. Mm-hmm. But what I see from a few clips here and there is, even in the writing, there's a lot of symbolism. There's technical stuff. You're very technical about what you do, yeah. And there's this debate of, school or no school. So I'd ask a very, very system question. Yeah. What's your background? So
for me, I think from the very first day I went to school, I knew that it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Like day one, when they brought me in,
like
and
P1?
I think it must have been like P1 or nursery. I don't remember very well.
Okay.
But then the person that brought me in, then they left. I was like, wait, so that they're leaving me here by myself? Mm-hmm. I was like, this is probably not my thing. But anyways, after primary 7, I'm joining Form 1. First thing I ask is, when do we drop math? And they're like, you'll have to wait for another 4 years for that. Mm-hmm. So, but then at home, I have a dad that's kind of like in my ear, telling me how the whole system doesn't make sense. Like, we've been, the school system started out as a means for the colonial master to kind of like have a way to talk to us while taking us stuff rather. So they kind of beat you into accepting the religion and learning their language, to make it easier for them to like take what's yours and to kind of like just shape you into what they want. They take you to these schools, and they create these systems where go in the morning at this time, they teach you words you have to cram. Yeah. And they ring a bell for you. Now you can get out and get something to eat.
Conditioning.
Bring you back, take you out. And then when you go to their factory to work, it's the exact same system. Yeah. So basically they're teaching you for that. Mm-hmm. Nothing creative. When they teach you like what's a map or what's biology, they don't expect you to think. They want you to tell them the exact same answer they told you in class. So that's basically what a machinist needs to know. I push the green button. I don't need to know how it works. I don't need to know why I push it. When I push the red button or the green button, the thing moves. Then I press the red one. Then it does this, and then I sign out. Go back home and wait for my pay. So that's pretty much what education does, in my opinion. And it also kind of does a disservice, where I was an artist. I wasn't very good at cramming stuff, but I was quite creative, like problem solving. Yeah. This thing is not working. I can come up with a thing that makes it work. The TV is not working at home. I can fix it even without having to learn how to fix it. But all that stuff is not really looked at. So basically, you have all these different people. Like you have a fish, you have a monkey, and the exam is on climbing a tree. So basically, the fish is considered incompetent because they can't climb a tree, but they're not built for that. They're different kind. So I was supposed to drop out in Form 4, but I was a bit worried because I always felt like anytime we're watching TV where they're like questioning people that have businesses or people that are looking for love and stuff, they ask me, so wasomako? And people are like, well, nakoma mu P7, no nakoma mu Form 4. And you always feel like that's embarrassing to say. Yeah. So you continue for that reason. I don't want to be embarrassed. I want to have this piece of paper. But by the time I was done with Form 6, I was old enough to understand that it's really not about that. It's about the things you can actually do. Because at that point, I knew some of the people, the richest people, the Bill Gates, all these people that they dropped out. Mm-hmm. So when I was at the point I was joining university, I went to Moka and Chambogo, but not necessarily as a student, but more as an observer, because I went to the final year students in each of the classes. I was trying to do industrial art and IT. So basically check out the students in the final years and just kind of interact and see what they're doing. And if I can figure whatever they're doing now in their final year, if I can figure it out myself, then I don't have to waste these years doing this. And quickly I realized that most of the things we're learning were going to be obsolete in like less than 2 years. Yeah. And indeed they were, you know. I mean, how do you teach someone at university how to like sculpt wood with 3D printers on the horizon coming, you know? So I think education is vital, but schooling is kind of not necessary. I feel like it's not the same thing. I mean, when I dropped out of school, I probably learned more out of school than I learned in school. When I was doing 3D animation, like for character animation, you need to understand the muscle system. So that's like biology, how these things work. But then when you're learning it for that, it's quite easy and it makes sense. When you're learning like maths and physics for animation, like gravity and all that stuff, makes sense. But in school, it just didn't, you know, it just didn't make sense. So for me, that's what I consider education, because that's still happening up to today. Even yesterday, I was learning something. But the whole schooling thing, especially the one we have here, I think it has to be changed. It's too long. And I mean, I could give you an example with the phone you're using. It's probably, made last year. But then the education system is 100 years old, more than that. But you're expected to be able to create that phone using that system. So clearly, those people are learning something else, and we are being taught something else. So we're taught to consume, and then they're taught to make. So I don't think we need to do that. Yeah.
I know you're not going to like this question, but I have to ask it anyway. I think it's good to know that, you know, you are really an acclaimed filmmaker, you know, Icon Awards. I think you got 3.
5, I think, but who's counting?
I'm sorry. 5, you know, everywhere you go, Loukman Ali is a name.
I'm not like a guy that's, as I've told you before, the goal has always been for me to see my vision coming to fruition. So awards really are not the measure for...
True.
Yeah, for me at least.
True. But they speak to a certain level of like disruption or, you know, and for a filmmaker, you know, what does it take to survive or to make a mark? We've talked about a few things, but, you know, down to the like nitty-gritties of it.
What does it take to survive?
To make your mark, actually. Not just survive, but make your mark.
Like, to make your mark, like, kind of like to be noticed or, basically.
That sounds very narcissistic, but
Yeah, well, in a way, as artists, you make your drawings or paintings. You're not making them for yourself. You want people to see them. And when they see them, you'd rather they appreciate and like them. Yeah, so yeah, we don't want to say it, but yeah, it is what it is. I think this applies to anything else. I mean, it's not just film. You, I mean, you if you put your heart and soul in anything, yeah, people notice. People notice it. It sometimes takes longer for other people than, you know. I might come out as a musician, and let's say you've been singing for 5 years, come out for 3 years, and all of a sudden I'm everywhere. Doesn't mean I'm a better musician than you. It just means that perhaps I had like earlier, like I practiced before, and then I came out at the right time. Like a lot of things aligned for me to be there. But still, even for you, if you practice long enough and you put in everything, your heart and soul, and try to do a good job. Try to do a good job. Because most people, even in film, I've realized people come out and they're interested in being a celebrity, like the actors mostly, because they're in front of the camera. Like they want to be a star. But they're forgetting that being a star is kind of a byproduct of doing a good job acting. So they're focusing on being the star. If a musician is focusing on being a star, well, they can be a star for a couple of months, but they can't really stay long enough to get that status. So for me, I actually just started doing interviews like recently because of I just wanted to clear out some things. You know, when you don't say anything, a lot of things are said about you. But before, it was never the goal. I wasn't like trying to be in people's faces. I was just trying to do a good painting and just put it out there, and just there's a way you feel when you do an art piece and people are enjoying it. They don't even have to say anything to you. They don't even need to know it's you who did it. But the way you see them and the way it affects them and their reactions, and there's a way it just makes you feel happy. So for any artists out there, for them, they know how it feels. So that's kind of the key thing. It's you have to put in your heart and soul, and people can see it. They can tell that there's a lot of passion that went into doing this.
Were you intentional about, transcending boundaries? Did you ever think that, you would be on Netflix, that you'd have an audience there, or were you just creating good work?
I wasn't necessarily thinking like Netflix, but again, I was also thinking, why not? Like I always thought, like why can't we do that? Why can't we be on that platform? Like, because I always go back to music because I've been so much involved and interested in music that I know that someone has a really good song, but it's not like the mixing or the production is lacking. And you're thinking, that's the only thing that's keeping you from getting to that level. So with film, I always watched films and I was thinking, I think the only thing holding us back is this thing. If we could fix this, there wouldn't be a reason why we can't be on the same platform. Because they're like human beings like us. Why do they get to, like, it almost feels like they're more intelligent, they have bigger brains than us, and I don't believe that. So yeah, for me it was, I always knew this, the thing that's holding me back is probably a technical thing, and once I figure that out, and I know I don't have that because again the education system made sure I don't have that. So you can find a way of teaching myself or finding a way to learn that. Yeah, there won't be any reason why I can't get there. Yeah, and I told people when we're making the very first film, told them that I feel like if we do a good enough job, we should be able to get to any of these platforms that we want, and we did. Yeah, so I wouldn't say it was intentional, but in a way, yeah, kind of was.
So would you say your process of education is more of like trial and error until you get a hang of it? Do you watch videos? Are you, enrolling yourself in like short courses? I just want to know that process.
Yeah, before it used to be a lot of trial and error, but that takes too long. It takes too long, you try so many times, and then you figure out, and the thing was just like a checkbox. You just had to check the thing and everything. So it took you 2 years to just find a checkbox, you know? So after that, when YouTube became cheaper, like bundles, I started just, these days, I don't even try to learn everything. Yeah. I just learn the thing the day I'm going to use it, because there's so many things to learn. So I learn something, then forget it, because I need to keep my head open for pin codes, you know, because I need to have different pin codes for everything now. So my brain is for that. If I want to learn something, go to YouTube and learn how to do that today, and then learn something tomorrow, and yeah, because it's all available. It will always be available on the cloud. And I think that for me, learning online is better. You can learn anything. Like you can learn how to make spaceships. You just need to know where to look. Because there's a lot of noise and useless stuff and information, and that always comes to the forefront. But if you know what you're looking for, you can pretty much learn anything. Like you can become, people learned how to like ski in Uganda on sand, you know, online. They didn't even need the snow. They just learned how to they learn how to make the skis using like things they can find, and they learn how to the day they get there, they just have to adjust to the temperature, and they can do it, you know. So I feel like anything you just don't want to, but you don't really have an excuse now.
Do you believe in, because you've said you've done visual sketch artist, graphics design, filmmaking, and there's a lot of talk about a niche.
Yeah.
Do you believe in that concept of a niche?
Yeah, I think like Bruce Lee once said, he's more scared of a man that has practiced one kick 10,000 times than a man that has practiced 10,000 kicks once. Yeah. I believe if you focus on one thing, you get really good at it. But in my experience, I practiced drawing for a long time, learned that. Then I moved on to something else, which I practiced for a long time, learned that. Then I figured that the drawing that I knew from before was really helpful in the thing that I'm doing now. And I don't necessarily do them together at the same time, but the thing I learned before is very useful to the thing I'm doing now. So it's been like that. It's been a process where I learned this from the previous life, and then now I need to use it here. And then sometimes you learn things out of necessity. I need to do this, but then the guy that does it is really expensive. Let me learn to do it just for this. But then the more you do it, the more you learn, the better you get at it. So if I were to choose, I would choose to learn one thing really well. But sometimes you're pushed into having to learn other things simply out of necessity. Yeah, which is pretty much the story of my life. Yeah.
Story of many creatives' lives, because especially here, resources, you have to do a little bit more. And that brings me to the next topic, which again we are so timid about as Africans, Ugandans, I assume, and that's money, right? Yeah. So for your films, you said you had billboards, it's free. Where do you get the funding for that?
Some of the things, so what I used to do is I do the boring jobs to fund the jobs that I care about. So I would kind of like do all this work that pays me and then invest that money in things that I care about. But now when it comes to billboards, and you'll be surprised how many people are willing to help you if they see that you're actually putting your heart in something. Like when we did Girl in the Yellow Jump, pretty much everything that we got was free. Like just write online that, oh, I would love to have some billboards, and then someone would like, I'll print them for free. And someone else is, I'll give you the space. And someone else is like, I'll do this, I'll do that. And then just like easy as that, because it's a lot easier to help you once you started pushing the thing. You know, it's a big boulder, and you call people to help you push it. No one is interested, but then they see you pushing it, and it's kind of like picking up momentum. They feel like their help will be useful. as opposed to like I'll come join the group and then it won't move. But now it's already moving. I don't have to push too much. I'll just have to hold and it will move. So I believe in a lot of that. And I think if I wanted to, let's say, create a car, if I built the things that I am capable of building, and I was only left with the thing that I can't build, and I took a picture of this other thing that I built with all my heart, and it looks really good, and the only thing missing is something else that I can't make myself, I bet someone would come in and help. I believe someone would. I believe it so much that I'll start creating this car with no idea where the other thing will come out from. Yeah, that's how much I believe in that, and it has worked every single time. So it actually, I have data to back it up. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. What do you think what is the hardest thing about being Loukman Ali?
Just surviving, to be honest. Like, life in general is really hard. Like, you know how you see someone on social media and they look like they're happy. Yeah, so I think life in general is like that. Not just social media, just kind of like made it a bit more pronounced. But you're walking around and you're looking at people. The thing I told you about empathy. And for me now, when I'm in traffic and someone screams at me, how I deal with that is I put a story on them. I'm like, maybe his wife just died, or maybe he has a sick kid.
Yeah.
So he's rushing to the hospital, and here I am, not driving fast enough. So maybe this is why he's mad at me. So the moment you think about it like that, you find yourself feeling bad for these people, and sometimes just kind of like taking it easy on people and not being hot-headed. Yeah. So because life is not easy. You look at, so I don't have specific problems as a Loukman, but just being a human being, there are things that are hard. Family, someone is sick, someone dies, stuff like that. So just like any other human being, just get your life. If you change your name, that's pretty much how I feel. That's how I feel. If you get yourself, change your name to my name, how you feel is how I feel, to be me. Yeah.
That's such a peaceful way to look at life, I feel.
I feel like it's kind of like actually quite, it's realistic and a bit sad in a way, because it's like that's how things are. There's nothing you can do to change how things are, because that's kind of how it is. I mean, you might think money will solve it. You get money and then you present it with other things, the things you can't just buy. Yeah, you can buy happiness, but there's other things you can't.
You can?
Yeah.
I don't think you can.
Well, you can't buy it 100%, but you can pretty much. You see, when they say money can't buy happiness, usually what they mean is that you can't. They look at it as a commodity, like you can buy it, but usually money makes you happy when you're giving it away. So when you have money and you solve someone's problem, like let's say you have someone sick in the family and they're going to die, then you help them and they don't die. There's a level of happiness it brings you. Yeah. So it can buy you happiness, but it's not like complete happiness, because that's not a thing that can happen with or without money. No one can be happy like that. Yeah. But it can bring a level. But brokenness can't buy anything. So you see, again, money is better. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. I have so many questions as a layman, and this one is just at the forefront of my mind in the specifics of making a film, right?
Yeah.
Because do you write your own films?
Yes, I do.
You do?
Yeah.
Produce them?
Yeah.
Pick the actors and actresses?
Sometimes.
Isn't that exhausting? It looks like a very, a huge task.
Yeah, it is. It is in fact a huge task, but it sometimes isn't. So I'm trying to find an example. So before I'm dyslexic, so I can't really write, spell, or read fast enough. So in the beginning, I knew that I couldn't write. I was sure I couldn't. So I focused on the visuals, which was from the drawing to all these visual things. And I never wrote anything. I mean, the biggest book I've ever read was like Tom Sawyer. And it's because I was locked in a library. I had nothing else to do. So I knew I couldn't do it. But then anytime I had someone else write a story for me, see, when someone is writing a story, they pretty much put themselves in the story. So anytime I had an idea of a story and I get someone else to write it, it ends up changing into them. Because we don't share the experiences, we don't share the same kind of level of inspiration. So now I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, oh, it's not what I would want to make. It's good, but it's not me. So then I try to learn how to write, which is probably the hardest thing in the whole process of making films. It's the hardest. Once you have a good script, everything else is easy to do. So I had to learn to do that so that I have a bit of myself in the film. Otherwise, I'm just a tool. I'm just a tool, just shooting these things, you know. So I had to learn to do that. Then edit. Now, edit is a form of writing, because let's say I say something like, I'll see you this evening, you know. The way I'm saying it and the space you leave before they cut to you means something, as opposed to me saying, I'll see you this evening. Like, the spacing in the sentence just changes the meaning of the thing. So that's exactly how it works when you're editing. Small space means something else, big space means something else. Holding onto a shot and cutting away means all these different things. And all those things are kind of like, you can't really, like, you don't even know you're doing them. They just happen. You know, they just happen. You're watching it and you're like, I think there should be a cut there. Someone else might think different, you know? So the same reason, you end up cutting it yourself, because you're like, if I don't, it doesn't communicate what I intended. Same thing with color. The same image being blue means something else, and being orange means something else. So, and all those things, again, it's a feeling, it's how you feel, you know? So you end up doing that yourself as well. And then again, with the music, just an image with a single piano thing, like ding, it means something else, as opposed to having like drums. So again, you end up having to be there while it's done, because the person that's watching it, it could bring a different emotion out of them, the musician, and then they write what they're feeling. But then, you know, it feels this way, but I want people to feel that way. So as much as it feels horrific to me, I want people to see the beauty in it. So score for the beauty in it. You get? Yeah. So you know all these things. So because of that process, you end up being involved in everything, you know? Because when you look at a film as a painting, you can't tell an artist that, okay, you just sketch and let someone else fill in the color. Then once they're done with the coloring, you can't really tell them that, okay, since you've done the face, let me do the background. Because in their mind, they're like, but I want it to be green, but I see you reaching for red, you know? So they have to do it themselves. And with film, because film is bigger, more expensive, and requires a lot more things, it's kind of expected that you shouldn't be doing a lot of things yourself. But it's art. You end up having to have an imprint on every single part of it, so that if your vision is to come out. Yes.
You know, I've had a lot of people joke around about how creatives are overprotective, you know?
You have to.
But it doesn't make sense any other way, especially with the whole painting, you know, analogy you've given.
Yeah. Art is supposed to be a dictatorship.
Yeah.
You know? Think about, again, I keep going back to music, but think about songs that were written and had a lot of artists in them. Like, let's say USF Africa. That song with Michael Jackson, it was written by two people, Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie. And then the examples that have been done in Uganda here, where the song has been written by each individual artist, came and wrote their own thing. Write a verse, and it's terrible. It has to be terrible, because it has no direction. Everyone is doing their own thing. So that's kind of why you need kind of like a direction and a single-minded person kind of like adding everything together. Yeah.
I think it would be a good challenge though to see something collaborative.
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's something that I've tried before many times. And the reason you don't know the results is because the results are usually quite embarrassing for all of us. So yeah, but I've tried it. I didn't just wake up and I'm like, let me do this thing myself.
Yeah.
I had to have tried doing it with someone else before, and it just didn't work out. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I feel like can go on for a very long time.
Yeah.
So what would be your parting words to a young filmmaker or someone who's interested in doing what you're doing?
The thing I have to say to anyone younger than myself is you can't do everything.
It's contradictory.
Yes, as opposed to what they tell you that you can do anything you set your mind to. Yeah. You can learn to do things. You can't just do them by default. Yeah. There's believing in yourself and there's being delusional. So you have to like work hard for things. When you see someone like a musician in a position they're in, they didn't just get there. They didn't just get lucky, you know. Maybe luck happened, but they had done something, you know. They had worked hard and the luck found them just prepared. So yeah, you have to try and like educate yourself and learn how to do things, and I believe in yourself, but also put in the work. Yeah, and people will always criticize you and beat you down and do all these things. So don't do it to yourself. Other people are going to do it for you. So yeah, you just don't beat yourself up. Other people will do that. So yeah, I think that's the best thing I can say. And be patient, because it's not going to work out as fast as you think. Yeah.
How long did it take you, by the way?
Well, I've been an artist all my life. So pretty much all my life, the first time I mentioned that I wanted to make movies, I must have been like 7, 6 or 8.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've been trying to make movies since I was like 7.
Thank you for coming to the
Thanks for having me
and sharing with us.
Thanks for having me on this second episode.
Yeah, I've been so excited, by the way, to just meet you. You're such a mystery to me.
Oh, really?
Because, yeah.
Should start wearing a mask. So
who? You?
I will start wearing a mask, so now it's like, who's the guy?
So, yeah,
I feel like the mystery works.
When you're,
it's
really cool. Really, really
the must filmmaker.
We have just had the amazing Loukman Ali on the maker's mindset. Such an observant person, such a deep person, soft-spoken, but with so much to share. We'll be airing this episode on All Motive Uganda social media, YouTube, Anchor, for those of you who want to tune in on audio only. See you then.